How's it going, everybody? For today's beer review, we're going to be taking a look at Lagunitas the Censored Rich Copper Ale. So what we have here is a beer from Lagunitas that has a really interesting story behind the name. If you look at the censored label, you can actually see that there's text underneath it in purple. Now there's an interesting backstory that goes along with this beer that if you didn't probably get it in a bomber bottle, I don't even know if they make it in those, but I imagine that's where they would put the story. They might not even put it at all in there, but if you look on their website, you can find it. The story is this beer is actually called Chronic, and the federal label authorities did not like that because, as you know, chronic is a slang term for a type of marijuana, and they said that was a no-no, and they had to change the name. So to kind of give them a middle finger, they changed it to censored and left the text underneath the label, which they weren't too pleased about either, but what can you do? You can't stop them from naming their beer censored, huh? So it is called a rich copper ale is how they word it on the label, but if you look on Beer Advocate, it's classified as an American amber ale. In my experience with ambers, they sometimes aren't really anything special and aren't too impressive, but I've read some stuff online saying that it is a very rich brew, so I'm hoping it's a little bit stronger than your typical amber, but we won't know till we try it. I'll be drinking it out of a standard Nonic pint glass. So let's get the cap off of here and see what this is like. If at all anything, it's at least a cool label for me to put into my label book. Kind of keep my labels in because it has an interesting story behind it. Straight out, the color is, as you would imagine, kind of a coppery amber color. Seems to have a medium-low head potential. Didn't really flare up very much. Came up to about a finger of very, very light yellow tinged white head. It's very soapy. The bubbles are popping quick, and it's probably not going to stick around very long at all. Holding this one up in the light is kind of just a amber, caramel, and copper sort of color. I mean, they got it right on the money on the label as far as the color goes. The smell, I like the smell of that. It's very simple, but it's also bold. There's a little bit of hops and a little bit of malts too. Kind of a little bit of a beery beer pilsner smell to it. Really not too terribly much more going on than that. It's just a very bold on the malts and then a light little bit of hops. There's kind of an earthiness to it also, kind of like rainwater in a sense. So yeah, not too crazy on the smell. Let's give it a taste. Definitely nothing special. It's just a really smooth, simple beer. It's nothing you can hate on. It's kind of hard to put mediocrity into words as far as tastes go. I'll give it this. There is a little bit of bitterness on the back end of it, which is nice. It's just a very balanced between malts and hops beer. Lightly sweet up front, and it ends on a very medium-low bitterness at the end. This is definitely not a sipping beer. This is a food pairing beer, a shower beer, a yard work beer. Not something to kind of just sit around and sip and savor. It's just something you could throw back. It's extremely sessionable. One thing I will say about it is that the texture of it is awesome. It actually has a bit of creaminess to it, and it's very oily. It's like it goes down very easily. So, in that regard, it's nice. But yeah, I honestly wasn't expecting anything crazy when I bought it. I mostly bought it just because the label was interesting. But yeah, past just a really well balanced but simple little beer with a little bit of bitterness on the end. It's not much more than that. As far as my rating goes, though, I still am going to give it decently good marks because in the style, I would give it about a 88 to an 89. It's definitely a very good representation of the amber style. I've had ambers that had more malt to them and more bitterness, and that's what I would have liked to have seen in this. But it's definitely a step above in its smoothness and its bitterness, as is now, than most ambers are. So I have to give it that. My own personal score, probably like a 78, 79, maybe an 80. It's okay. I mean, you know, I'm going to drink it, but it would be a lot better if I had it with some kind of really tasty food. Nothing specific. This would go with pretty much anything. Burger and fries, steak, pizza, you know, more heavy American, I guess, kind of foods. But it would go well with, like, Mexican food, too. But anyway, that has been my simplistic review of a simple beer, Lagunitas the Censored Ale, a rich copper ale, or an amber ale. Hope you guys enjoyed the beer review as always. Stay tuned for the next one.